The book of Proverbs, chapter 4, verse 23 says, keep thy heart with all diligence, for out of it are the issues of life. Jeremiah 17:9 says, the heart is deceitful above all things and desperately wicked. Who can know it? Don't think for 1 minute that Satan doesn't know the weakest spot in your life and mine. It's the heart. God said, sin lieth at the door, but in my Bible there's a little different translation. It says, sin croucheth at the door, as if sin was an animal waiting for a chance. That animal is Satan, waiting for a misstep. He knows where we're the weakest, in the heart. In the first mention of a door in the Bible, it's not very happy. The next one may prove a little more hopeful, perhaps. We'll go to the 6th chapter of Genesis. God saw that the wickedness of man was very great. Every imagination of his heart was only evil continually. It repented the thought that he had made man, and he resolved that he would destroy the earth and everything and everybody that was in it. But there was one man who found grace in the eyes of the Lord. And he stepped on the balances of heaven and outweighed the whole world in righteousness. In 3 or 4 succinct words. Noah walked with God. God directed him to build an ark. And he gave Noah the direction and the dimensions, because there was going to be a flood upon the earth such as never was. Skipping the details of this chapter, in the 6th verse, it says, the door of the ark shalt thou set in the side thereof. And through that door walked Noah and his family, the fowls of the air, the animals of the earth, and whatever else came on it. Noah and his family were directed to enter the ark. The windows of heaven were opened. The great fountains of the deep were broken. The rain came down in torrents. The earth, up from the earth came, I don't know how that was, but the water came up in a giant vise. Water from the bottom, water from the top, and this little planet called Earth squeezed. And I can't believe that that boat was sailing pleasantly along in a placid pool of water. There hadn't been any shakedown cruise to see if the boat was okay, to see if they could. They didn't know any way how to handle a boat because there never was the need of one. It was built by men, not by God. There might be something wrong with it. They didn't have the slightest idea what to do. They were not promised a pleasant voyage. You recall when Jesus said to his disciples, as he stood by the Jordan, the Sea of Galilee, he said, let's go to the other side. Sure, we'll go to the Jesus is going, sure we'll go. And so they started. And when they got out there a little ways, one of those terrible Galilean storms took place. They scared those fishermen to death. I read that story with care. And Matthew 8:24 says the boat was covered with waves. Matthew 4:37 says the boat was completely filled with water. And here is the Savior of the world sitting in water up to his chin, sleeping. I would be among those that made the biggest fit about that. Carest thou not that we perish? Aren't you the Son of God? If the bottom of that boat should fall out, that would no more sink than the stars would fall from heaven. Jesus was on that boat. Nothing's going to happen except you're going to get wet. I was in the lobster boat when I was pastor in Sunshine, Maine. Sunshine is a little island off the coast of Maine. And there are arms from the land going out so that we lived in the kind of a cove. I thought I knew where that wave was. We had waves, with storms, yes, it was a little rougher. But on this occasion, I'm 19 miles out on a 28-foot lobster boat. I was down at the bottom part of a great gigantic wave. I looked up 15 feet. I didn't measure it, but that's what I got. That's what the information was. All I could see was a ring of water, and I'm down here. And the second I was up there, looking down, and you can believe I made some vows. In that terrible storm that lasted almost a month, without a letter, if there was anything that could console them, that they were not going to go down, that ark wasn't, they never had tried it out or anything. There never was such a storm as there was then, and they were in the middle of it. It's not possible to say how long they were in the ark, but if you read chapters 7 and 8, you've got to count at least 250 days over 8 months that they were in torment, I do believe. You might smile just a little bit when you read what Noah's first act was. Noah built an altar. And believe me, there was a lot of thanksgiving and praise. They got off that thing alone. We get beautiful pictures of the ark. A giraffe is putting his head out the back window and smiling. It seems like you see Noah and his family sitting around the fire inside. I don't think it was that way. They were not guaranteed a pleasant voyage. But they were safe enough. We were safe in that little 28-foot boat. It was like a bottle with a stopple on it. It was buoyant. It'd be awful hard to sink a boat like that. It would come up no matter. Thank God for that. And that ark, there was no need really to worry, and I'll tell you why. Genesis chapter 7, verse 17. And the Lord shut him in. Doesn't mention the word door, but the obvious meaning is clear. The door of the ark, God says in chapter 6:16, the door of the ark shalt thou set in the side thereof. If there ever were any weak spot in that great ark against the flood, it would be that door. But God shut the door. They were now in an unspeakable grasp.